All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar titled Breaking Physical Activity Barriers Through Open Community Use, Where We Are and Where We're Going. My name is Kelsey Allen. I'm with Eat Smart Move More, South Carolina, and I'll be moderating today's webinar. The purpose of this webinar is to update participants on efforts to support adoption, implementation, and promotion of the South Carolina School Board Association's Open Community Use of Outdoor Recreational Areas Model Policy, or KFA, and provide strategies for continuing the momentum to increase awareness of open community use. A few housekeeping items before we get started. If at any point throughout the webinar you have any questions, please type them into the chat box located in your webinar panel. We will have lots of time to address those questions at the end of the webinar. If you have technical difficulties, you can also type them into that chat box, and we will do our best to help resolve them. This webinar will be recorded, and I will share it with you all at the end of the webinar within the next week or so. Today, we're excited to have two excellent presenters, Sabrina Smith and Sabrina Richardson. Sabrina Smith is the Healthy Eating Active Living Special Projects Coordinator with the South Carolina Department of Health and Environmental Control. Sabrina coordinates statewide healthy eating and active living opportunities through policies, systems, and environmental approaches for schools and work sites across South Carolina. Sabrina Richardson is the principal of Hannah Pamplico Elementary and Middle School in Florence County School District 2, where he has worked for over 24 years. A product of a small rural public education system himself, LeGrand now facilitates the education of 4K through 8th graders at HPEM, where collaboration and collective decision-making are keys as a leader in me school. At this point, I'll go ahead and get started with some learning objectives, and then I'll hand it over to Sabrina to get started. The learning objectives for this session are, the first is describe what open community use is and its benefits across different sectors. Secondly, identify key strategies to increase school and community engagement and open community use awareness through recent survey findings and new partnerships at the state and local level. And third, participants will be able to apply lessons from South Carolina schools implementing and promoting open community use. And Sabrina will take it over from here.
All right, thank you, Kelsey. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep, sounds good.
All right, thank you. And hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us on the webinar today, and let's get started. So South Carolina consistently ranks among the highest in the nation for obesity. Our state has the 12th highest rate of obesity in the nation for adults, and 80.3% of adults did not meet the recommended physical activity guidelines in 2015. Many factors that contribute to lack of physical activity is time, access, convenience, maybe cost. If there is a place that someone is going to purchase access, maybe a gym for that matter. So cost is a factor for our community members. And then finding a place you feel comfortable being in. For specific data in your areas, if you're looking for specific community information, you can view your county's health profile information, which is located on the South Carolina DHEC website. And that address is www.dhec.southcarolina.gov. So www.dhec.sc.gov. So let's talk physical activity. Being physically active is one of the most important steps that people of all ages and abilities can take to improve their health. Regular physical activity helps prevent risk factors for disease, such as high blood pressure and weight gain, and protects against multiple chronic diseases, such as heart disease, stroke, type 2 diabetes, and even some cancers. Next slide. The Physical Activity Guidelines for Americans recommends that adults get at least 150 minutes a week of a moderate intensity aerobic activity, or about 20 minutes per day. But children and adolescents need to be active for at least 60 minutes every single day. And I want you to think if you are yourself reaching these guidelines for 20 minutes per day. Did you know that, advance the slide? Did you know that adults and youth are more likely to be physically active in communities where schools allow open community use of their outdoor recreational facilities? Adults living near a walking path are 2 times more likely to meet physical activity guidelines. Schools and communities throughout the state and the nation are working to increase physical activity by allowing free access to outdoor recreational facilities. Next slide. To change this trend and build a new culture of health, South Carolinians must have access to safe, affordable, and convenient places to be physically active. Next slide. So what is open community use? Open community use refers to schools allowing free community access to outdoor recreational facilities like a track, fields, or playgrounds on site before or after school hours. So again, the key things here are it is free for use for the community, and it is the outdoor recreational facilities, not say like a gym, an indoor gym. In addition to open community use, school facilities can be open for public use in different ways. For example, many schools have shared use or joint use agreements in place with government entities, organizations, or nonprofits to open access to a school's property. These agreements give access to only a specific group and sometimes in exchange for a fee. For example, an after-school program using a school's track for after-school activities would be considered a joint use agreement. Open community use, joint use, and shared use can all exist together without interfering with one another. Next slide. So policy and practice. Open community use can be promoted through policy adoption and practice. A school district can adopt a policy to encourage open community use at their district school location. Policy like the Open Community Use Model Policy, KFA, is adopted at the school district level, not at the school level. A school can practice open community use by allowing access to their school's outdoor facilities. So in short, policy happens at the district level, where practice happens at the individual school location. Remember that you can have schools that practice open community use without a policy in place at the district level, and vice versa. A district who has adopted the policy could have a school in that district that is not practicing open community use. To achieve the full benefit of open community use, both policy and practice are encouraged. Next slide. The South Carolina School Boards Association published the Open Community Use Model Policy, KFA, and the policy and legislative updates, and encouraged the school districts to adopt and implement the model policy. This model policy was reviewed and approved by General Counsel. Next slide. Dr. Tiffany Richardson serves as the General Counsel and Director of Policy and Legal Services at the South Carolina School Boards Association and shared in a quote that some communities, schools are often the only place to find safe and affordable recreational spaces. So school boards are encouraged to adopt a policy addressing the use of district recreational areas. Next slide. In addition, open community use strategies are included in the South Carolina Obesity Action Plan, Scale Down, aimed to reduce obesity rates statewide. This plan was developed through a collaboration of professionals representing different public and private sectors like state agencies, nonprofits, and businesses throughout the state. The goal of these open community use strategies is to increase awareness of open community use and the number of school districts who have adopted a policy. Individuals representing community and public health sectors can help by educating different parties on open community use and advocate this concept with school districts as well as other locations with outdoor recreational spaces. Increasing access to places where community members can be physically active while utilizing existing resources is the main goal. Next slide. Listed here are the 13 school districts who have adopted the South Carolina School Boards Association Model Policy, KFA, through 17. Recently, Cherokee County School District adopted the policy in February of this year, bringing us up to 14 school districts across the state to adopt the KFA policy. These 14 school districts represent about 17% of the school districts across the state, with about 81 school districts across the state in total. Next slide. A survey was disseminated to 313 school principals in 30 school districts across South Carolina in 2017 to assess the awareness, practice, and promotion of open community use at the local level. Of the schools surveyed, 174 principals responded, equaling a 55% response rate. From this survey, we found that 109 of 155 schools with outdoor recreational facilities are practicing open community use, which is about 70%. We were encouraged to see that so many local schools have decided to practice open community use. The next step would be to educate these local schools, corresponding school districts, about the open community use model policy and help them with any adoption or implementation as needed. In addition to the findings, we also learned that 89% of principals said that there is a potential benefit in a school district adopting the open community use model policy. The benefit a majority of the principals listed for adopting and practicing open community use was enhanced community engagement. Rodney Zimmerman from Orangeburg Consolidated School District 5 stated that open community use provides a safe and familiar place to provide recreational space for the community and promotes positive home, school, and community relations through healthy living opportunities. These 2017 survey findings and the policy snapshot on the slide previously are located on our newly updated Open Community Use one-pager, which will be shared with each of you through email after this webinar. Next slide. A more recent statewide relationship has begun with the South Carolina School Boards Insurance Trust. The South Carolina Insurance Trust partners with a majority of school districts across the state to provide property insurance coverage. Steve Mann serves as the Director of Insurance Services at the Insurance Trust and encourages school districts to have a policy in place regarding open community use. Our regional DHEC staff continue to work with school district staff, educating them about open community use and strategies for adoption, implementation, and promotion. Next slide. So some school districts are reluctant to adopt an open community use policy due to concerns with liability. However, South Carolina currently provides clear liability protection for community use of school facilities for recreation. In South Carolina, there is a significant legal protection for allowing open community use at schools through the South Carolina Recreational Use Statute and the South Carolina Tort Claims Act. Next slide. Liability is a legal responsibility for an injury or damage to property. The fear of liability is often only a perceived barrier. Schools are no more at risk than during the school day. The measures that a school takes to protect themselves during the school day, such as putting inspection protocols in place and allowing or following safety regulations, help protect them after hours as well. Another key point is that Steve Mann with the South Carolina Insurance Trust, if a school district does partner with them to provide that insurance coverage, they have some protocols in place to assure that you're protecting yourself from liability and making sure that you're maintaining your grounds in the appropriate manner. Next slide. The South Carolina Recreational Use Statute, as referred to above, limits the liability of landowners, including government entities, who open their land to the public free of charge. Also, next slide. The South Carolina Tort Claims Act protects government entities, including school boards, school districts, and schools from liability issues related to maintenance, supervision, or security. Both the Recreational Use Statute and the Tort Claims Act are listed on the Open Community Use Model Policy, KSA, and can provide a level of protection for school districts if they adopt the policy. So for specific legal or liability questions, please contact your school district legal counsel or the South Carolina School Boards Association Legal Services, and their information is listed on the slide there. So I did want to provide a brief overview on the specific action steps that schools, school districts, and communities can take to adopt and implement a community use policy. Whether you are at the school or community level, these action steps can help guide your progress. So the first step is to research and review school districts' policies and schools' practices on open community use. We talked earlier about the differences between policy and practice, as well as the difference between open community use and joint use. You can view many school district policies online through the South Carolina School Boards Association website at www.scsba.org, or you could visit the local schools district webpage. Next slide. So in order for schools, school districts, and communities to establish, adopt, implement, and promote open community use, it is important to find the appropriate partners. Some ideas of potential partners could be local PTA, interested staff members at the school or district level. Also could be the district wellness committees or CSHACs. Local Eat Smart Move More coalitions or other local coalitions in the community. Additionally, local groups such as those with vested interest in health and well-being, like maybe a running club or walking club, like Girls on the Run, could be a valued partner and potential user of that recreational space in the future. Next slide. So the next step is to consider how the model policy will be tailored to meet the needs of the individual school district, and community. Two important questions that must be answered are: what outdoor recreational facilities will be included, and when will they be open to the community? For example, you may choose, or a school district may choose to allow open community use for school tracks only, or maybe it would be playgrounds. This is, you're able to tailor that model policy and make it your own. School districts do not have to allow access to all facilities, but don't forget to think about access to these facilities and maintenance needs. So if you do have a track and you decide that that is the outdoor recreational space that you would like to allow for community use, how are community members going to access that asset? Is there a fence around the track? Is it locked? What would be the best way for community members to come and utilize the space? Next slide. So once a school district's proposed open community use model policy has been drafted and tailored for their specific use, it is ready to be presented to the local school board for adoption. And this process is individual for the actual school board, so you may want to attend a school board meeting in your community to get familiar with their practices. But typically what will happen is a presentation will be made to the school board, and then the school board will vote on adoption of the policy. And that usually takes 2 times for a vote to be passed before a policy is actually adopted and implemented at the district level. Next slide. And lastly, the final step is to develop a communication and marketing plan to promote open community use. So here are some examples on the slide of different costs associated with different communication tactics. So with less expensive being social media, so maybe a Facebook or Twitter, press release, newsletter. We've even seen school students get involved with promotion of open community use, like doing some sort of banner that can be displayed outside, or maybe it's even just chalk on the sidewalk telling individuals that, your area is now open to the public for community use of those recreational facilities. So I think that this is a way to get your students involved and really have them be creative about promoting this new access to the schools. And I think it's a great community relations tool, and it's a great way to get everyone involved in the promotion of open community use. More expensive options would be probably signage, or if you were going to do some sort of print materials or some sort of printed banners that would be outside of the school, or some sort of release party for open community use adoption. Next slide. So, sorry, go back one more for me. So just to kind of wrap up everything that we have discussed today, increasing access to places where community members can be physically active will help our state become healthier together. Utilizing our existing resources is an effective and affordable strategy to reach our state's health goals. And remember that anyone can be an agent for change in their community whether you're a school, community, or you're in the public health sector. Any one of us can advocate for these healthy eating, active living strategies that can be implemented within our communities. One thing that I would like to also explain to you is Cherokee County. As you remember, I mentioned that they recently adopted the Open Community Use Model Policy in February of 2018. And Christina Cody from Cherokee County was the spearhead for that adoption in her area. And she did a wonderful job coordinating her school wellness coordinators in the district area, and was able to form a wellness committee specifically for tailoring the Open Community Use Model Policy, and then taking that model policy and presenting it to the board in her district. And then they were able to adopt that policy. But it really did take what they were practicing already at a local level, and they were able to put that district policy beside it, and really feeling like they have accomplished the full and receiving the full benefits of open community use in their area. And it's a great public relations tool for that community and for that school district. So if you would like more information about their process and using those wellness committees or CSHACs at the school level, please let me know. My information will be towards the end of the presentation on this PowerPoint, and you can email me and I can get you in contact with Christina Cody if you would like to learn more about their process. And then also, I did want to mention that we do have a playbook for open community use, and that will also be shared with you through the email that will be sent out later this week. So I did want to talk about a local implementation in Florence County. Florence County is located in the northeastern portion of South Carolina. Florence County consists of 5 school districts. 3 school districts in Florence County have adopted the Open Community Use Model Policy, KFA, and this would be Florence Public School District 1, Florence County School District 2, and Florence County School District 4. Next slide. So I would like to hand it off to Sabrina Richardson, who is the principal with Florence County School District 2, and Kelsey did a great job introducing him at the beginning of this presentation. So I will hand it over to you, Sabrina.
Good morning. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity this morning to be with you and speak with you a little. Just to share a little more about our location, we're one of 5 school districts in Florence County. We're in the easternmost part of the county along the Big Petey River. And we're very small, very rural, turned into a bit of a bedroom community as we've lost agriculture industry and some other local industries. So there's some real advantages about being here. We're a strong multi-generational presence in our schools and the school district. And for those of us who've been here for the long haul, we know parents, grandparents of the children that are currently here. Some of us have seen 2, 3 generations come through. So we really build a bond with the community. But some of those disadvantages are that without an open community use policy and facility use, we're probably 30, 35, 40 minutes away from the type of facilities family would need for recreation, private gyms, YMCAs, these sort of programs. So we're kind of a hub for this small community around Pamplico, South Carolina. And our actual involvement with public use facilities really predates most of the folks who are here and in the school district now. We know that we can track back to our previous facilities, and at least as far back as 25 plus years that we have had an open door policy with regards to using some of our outdoor facilities. In our case, primarily a track facility, the tennis courts, and also the playground area behind the elementary and middle school. So we have a situation where folks have always been coming out and using them. We just had to make a choice to whether or not we wanted to actually make it part of our policy. And we found that anything we can do to increase the community involvement helps us make better connections. There are folks that we'll see here around this policy that we may have a hard time getting into our schools and in our facilities overall. Of course, it builds that culture of wellness, but also a big part of it is, because we're small, we're rural, don't have a lot of industry. Our local folks pay a pretty heavy burden in taxes and millage rate for us to have the things that we have. So we feel like we owe it to them as taxpayers, as citizens, and we like the fact that it keeps our school with a welcoming and inviting feel. There are some things that you have to think about and consider as you look at putting these sort of practices and policies in place. One, logistically speaking, you have to think about access. You want folks to be able to get to the things that you want them to have access to. In our case, track area, playgrounds, tennis courts, but at the same time, we don't allow access to other athletic fields or the actual physical plants of school. So you have to think about some engineered barriers, some gates, some fences. You have to make sure that you provide parking. Certainly, we work with the folks at the School Boards Association. They just came out, I think, a couple of weeks ago, did an inspection to make sure that they felt comfortable with how we had the arrangement, the bleachers, the availability. We want to keep it nice and clean for the community. Likewise, we post our expectations on some signs of how we, basically, you found it in a good condition. We want to make sure you leave it in a good condition, make sure you provide trash receptacles, and that some of your maintenance and custodial staff is constantly monitoring that. And of course, one advantage we have over many years back before we had thought about putting this into place as a policy was security is a lot more available to us now with just about everything on the outdoor of our facilities under view of one camera or another, and even that our administrators have the ability to, on their personal phones, devices, to watch what's going on away from the school facility. So all of these are things you want to think about. We are unique in that we're about 3.5 miles out of town. There's no sidewalks. We're on a primary highway, and there are some geographical barriers, water and wooded areas around us. So one thing that schools in more of a inner city or residential type setting would have to deal with maybe a lot more foot traffic. We are fortunate we do not have to deal with that. Folks who come out here to use our facilities are usually very purposeful about it. They are, have to get in a car, a group of folks, and come here with this use in mind. And I think that has also played into our hands. If you want to go ahead to the next slide for me. So really for us, it was a matter of matching what we were already doing, sitting down and putting a little pen to paper with expectations and customizing KFA and administrative rules around it so that we were matching what the School Boards Association model, what that intent was with what we were actually doing. And while we certainly know there are some liabilities involved, as was said earlier, there's always liability involved, even during the day. Of course, we have so many extracurriculars, athletic events, so it's just part of our business. But we felt like there were some strong advantages to go ahead and adopting the KFA policy, that it put down on paper what we were doing. It gave us a chance to customize it. It also tied to administrative rules, other practices that were already in place, and it allowed us a good place with our school board, with our community input, to set what the expectations were in doing this. So for us, it's something that's been in place again for we know well over 25 years. And going back to the summer of 2016, we adopted this and felt like it was the next step for us to move forward, very positive. So I would ask anyone to think hard about, first of all, whether or not you allow access, and then certainly if you do, make sure you have a policy to back it. It again is a great public relations tool for us, and to be honest with you, I don't think that our community would have any part of us backing away from it. And Sabrina, I think that's all I need to say.
All right, thank you both so much for your presentations. That was really great information. And Mr. Richardson, what a great example locally to hear how this works successfully and can be such a great resource for the community. So at this point, we'll go ahead and go through some questions from the audience. And I'll start with just some quick sort of housekeeping type question. So one of the questions from the audience, Sabrina, is whether or not the participants will have access to the slides. Will you be able to give them a copy of the slides from this presentation?
That will be available to them. I am guessing that will be sent out with the email, the follow-up email from this actual webinar.
Okay, great. And another question was brought up about the example, Sabrina, that you mentioned in Cherokee. Could you repeat who the sort of spearhead for that process was in Cherokee County?
Yes, that was Christina Cody. Christina is, she actually is a teacher in Cherokee County, and she also is one of those school wellness coordinators. And she helped form the district wellness committee and kind of spearheaded that committee for the tailoring of the KSA model policy, and helped to present that to her school board for adoption. But like I said, if you are interested in contacting her and learning more about that process, you can email me. My email contact information is there right on the slide. So you can email or call me, and I can get you in contact with her. Or if you have any other questions in your region and would like to learn more about open community use, like I said, we do have regional DHAC staff who are at the local level who can assist and provide technical assistance to school districts, or they are partaking in coalition meetings and things like that to move open community use forward in the communities. So you can contact me, and I can get you in contact with the correct regional resource as well.
Great, thank you, Sabrina. Mr. Richardson, I have a question for you now. So you mentioned that your school district had really been in practice doing open community use for as long as you've been a part of it. Have you found that formalizing a policy, has that changed much? I know it put some of that stability in place as far as the expectations and things like that. Has it increased the amount of traffic that you get at the facilities or anything like that? How has it changed having a formal policy versus just the practice?
I think day in and day out, there's been very little change in terms of the folks that use it. You see a lot of familiar faces. Of course, some will leave, some will go. We don't have huge numbers, but we may have several dozen, particularly during the longer days of the year in the summer. It's not unusual to come out in the morning and see folks those early daylight hours, and then later in the evening using it. So I don't think it's changed a lot there, and I think the average member of the community doesn't understand that anything's any different. I think what it did for us is made sure we were in a little better footing in terms of putting out what our expectations were in case there were any incidents that would arise. I think it also had us make sure we were as attentive to the facilities and that we're ready to receive the community always. It maybe put us on our P's and Q's a little more, and probably because there are some liability statements inside that policy, it probably put us in a little better legal situation in case something were to arise. And certainly, we're insured by the South Carolina School Board Association. We have adopted their model policy, so I'm certain also it plays into things if there were an incident, any litigation, it puts us in better standing with them. So I don't think it's actually had an impact on how it's used, when it's used, the amount of traffic. We put some signage up. Word of mouth is probably our best advertiser. But I think on the administrative and school facilities, it probably made us a little better at being ready to receive the community.
Excellent. And then also for you, Mr. Richardson, do you notice that your staff uses the outdoor facilities for physical activity?
Actually, yes, I would say that, and that has been something that's, continuous and somewhat sporadic. Different folks get on different, folks on different goals, different times of year, depending on what's going on with their family. But we have quite a number of our staff members who will go out and particularly use the track. We just updated the lighting out there, and even though our policy says, I think it's daylight to dusk outside of school hours, we actually have a push button switch that you can light any of these facilities, and they will stay on for 1 hour, and you get a little warning indicator as that time approaches. And I think since we've done that, you end up with more in general. But we have a fairly significant amount of the folks who work here that go out and particularly use that track after hours.
Excellent. Okay, and this question I'll pose to both of you if either of you have any input on this question, but one of the webinar attendees is a mother of a child and is wondering what is the best way to begin introducing this topic to her local school district. Do you have any suggestions for her?
Well, I would say from my perspective here, certainly she should have a local school board member that she could maybe speak with about it, but also school improvement council contacts. These are some folks that were involved with it here, and a lot of our more involved parents day in and day out, in and out of the school, are involved with school improvement council. So I would say that would be a good point of contact also. And certainly building level administration. It's because you have a district policy, but also within the district you have different schools that have different practices underneath that policy. So I would think any of those places would be somewhere to start.
And this is Sabrina. I agree with what LeGrand was saying. I think that having the parents be involved with, if they're involved with the PTA, again, that was one partner that we discussed earlier in the presentation, which could help advocate for open community use at the school, and then kind of following that up. So if it's a community member at the school level, if they're involved with the PTA, and then telling that message and explaining and educating individuals as you come in contact with them. I think as you're following that road up, so the PTA, the school administration, the district level, and then with the school board, I think getting all of those different individuals involved with the conversation would be a natural way to progress upwards to get that in front of the school board, and really working with the school and with the school district to help progress that forward. And Kelsey, I did want to add earlier when you were asking about usage, specifically with schools that have a policy in place and things like that. One thing that I did want to add is we did see on the survey that we sent out to a subset of schools back in 2017 that there was a correlation between increased usage of the recreational facilities and having a sign at the school educating community members about open community use. So that there was a definite increase in that usage if the school had signage saying that that area was open for community use.
Okay, thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
We have another question about individual schools versus district-wide policies. So I've seen in a lot of communities and have heard the challenge of getting a district-wide policy in some areas where you have some schools within the district that are interested and others not, in the district being a little hesitant to move forward with a district-wide policy. In that situation, can individual schools create a policy even if their school district does not have a district-wide policy?
Gosh, I don't want to give anybody any bad advice. I think, I certainly here at my individual school, we do some things a little differently under KFA than my neighbors next door to high school, primarily because we have some playground facilities and things that they don't have over there, and they're more athletic facility oriented. I think I would not feel comfortable with opening anything here without some district level, contact and permission. So I would caution anybody to just at a school level to go off on their own too terribly much, because you're going to need the support. But I do know that in interacting with other folks at school level, depending on what your facilities provide to you, where you are, accessibility, you may have different elementary schools, middle schools, high schools in the same district that that have different facilities that they are able to make available. But I certainly would advise anybody to make sure that the district level administration, school board is on board before you go out and open any facilities.
Yeah, and I will just add to that. We've seen that schools can decide to practice or not practice open community use, and actually we've seen that a lot of some districts have made that or given that decision to the actual school as to whether or not they would like to open their facilities up for community use. Having said that, I think that it is always, like LeGrand was saying, have the support of your district behind you when you are making those decisions at the local level. But one thing we have seen is that, school districts, in terms of actually adopting the policy, they, when we have some conversations, one of the things that we hear is that all of my schools are practicing this. I don't need a policy in place. But I would caution, that district to say that, number one, having that policy in place, like LeGrand was saying, will give you that level of protection because it does reference those different legislative things that are out there with the Tort Claims Act and the Recreational statute. It talks about those in the actual policy. You can tailor that policy to say exactly what areas are open, and it sets those expectations, like LeGrand was saying, and connection to other existing policies that you already have in place. Not only that, but if there is changeover or turnover at the school level, or even at the district level, it gives that accountability, and it really sets that precedent that this is what we're going to decide to do as a district moving forward. That way we can take this effort and all of the work that people put into open community use at that local level and continue it throughout the years to come.
Great, thank you both. So one of the things that you mentioned, Sabrina, in your presentation was that one of the biggest advantages to practicing open community use and having a policy is enhanced community engagement with the school and the community. Do you have any examples from around the state of what that might look like and how that is a benefit to the school? And Mr. Richardson, if you have any examples as well. We'd love to hear some more details about that.
Yeah, so again, like we were discussing during the PowerPoint, during that survey, we did ask school principals, and they were the individuals who participated on the survey that we sent out for open community use. What were the benefits of it in their thoughts? What were the benefits of open community use? And yes, that public relations, community involvement. I think it comes down to community members being on site more, and you creating that open feel with your community. You're inviting, you're engaging the community to come on site and utilize those resources that are there. Some people have said that they're because of taxpayers' money and things like that. I've heard those conversations before. So sometimes, opening a facility up at your school for open community use makes them feel like that they are more a part of the actual school itself, and then therefore they will be more engaged. Some examples of that would just be with, I think even LeGrand talked to me about this when we spoke a couple of weeks ago, but just having those community members on site and being able as an administrator to go up to them and have conversations and build relationships. And I think that will just intensify as the number of people come and utilize the space.
Yeah, I agree. I think it comes down to just another kind of representation of community ownership of the school also in a very positive way. A lot of our public relations in education deal with contacting folks primarily when something is wrong. When there's an academic problem, a discipline problem, a transportation, problem, and it's just another way in terms of public relations to get folks out. When they get out here, it's a positive engagement. They appreciate to have the opportunity. Sometimes you just go through, shake a few hands, and associate names with faces for folks you may not know as well. And they just see it's a good positive interaction. They see a lot of other things that are going on here. It's a service. I know there was a parent who had a question from a few moments ago. We have a lot of extracurricular activities here, and parents appreciate the fact that, hey, while my child's practicing for the play or the musical or the basketball team or whatever, that there are areas here that I can get out and be active, or that I can carry my other two very young children out to the playground while, I'm having to wait 30 or 45 minutes, which is the case sometimes. So just public relations and offering some ownership back to those community members.
Yeah, that's great. I think that's really encouraging for school administrators and for community members to hear that effort is being made. And I think it can really make a big difference to bridge the gap between sort of the school and the community when the school is open to everybody, whether or not you have children there. So I think it's a great way to build that relationship through open community use. Okay, we have about 5 minutes left. So to all of our participants on the call, if you have any last questions, please feel free to put them in the chat box and we'll make sure we get them to our presenters. But that is all that we have so far for the day. Are there any last thoughts from Mr. Richardson or Sabrina that you wanted to share with the attendees?
Well, I just appreciate the opportunity to be a part of this morning. I hope that other folks will, take the opportunity to you have open community use to engage. Again, for us, it's very positive and at least explore it. I think it's a win-win situation for the communities, for the those with the closest ties, for the schools and for the schools themselves.
And this is Sabrina again. I would actually like to thank LeGrand Richardson for being on the call today and discussing his experience and their district's experience with open community use. We really, really appreciate that. And anyone that's out in the community that has helped with any of these efforts. I know our DHEC regional staff, if they're on the call, thank you for your support with these local districts to help educate individuals about open community use and move the efforts forward. Thank you to Eat Smart Move More for hosting the webinar for us to get the message out there about open community use. So we thank you as well. But to just kind of wrap it up, I think that number one, we are just thankful for everyone being on the call, listening, and if you have any questions about open community use, whether that be the fun promotional questions or public relation questions, or those a little bit harder questions about liability, we are here to help and assist and help answer those, or connect you with somebody who is currently interacting with open community use and maybe give you some hands-on experience of how they have dealt with different things. So please contact me. Right there is my email, smithst@dhec.sc.gov, and I can connect you with those regional DHEC staff for technical assistance, or with others who may can help.
Okay, we've got two last quick questions for y'all before we end the webinar. So just to clarify, Sabrina, we just want to make sure that it's clear to the participants. Only the districts can adopt this policy, not the school, correct?
I'm sorry. Yes, I would say that the policy needs to happen at the district level. I've never heard of a school adopting a policy, and I would definitely go through the district for that adoption of a policy. The school can practice, but the district is where the policy would live.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And then lastly, Mr. Richardson, have you had any issues with vandalism on the property after putting up signs and passing the policy for open community use?
No, none that I'm really aware of. From time to time, you may have a piece of trash or a bottle or something you have to pick up, but in terms of any vandalism tied to it, we have not. That's been a very positive part of it. It probably doesn't provide us near the challenges things like the normal ball games and things do for us. Our communities received it well, and occasionally you will have an incident where you may have to go out and do a little cleanup, but again, through security systems, it allows us to monitor that, and I think the community is aware of that, so that is probably part of it also.
Well, that's really encouraging to hear. Okay, and with that, I will go ahead and wrap us up. So thank you again to our presenters and to all of our attendees. This is excellent information, and you will, from me, you'll get the recording as well as the slides and some of the resources that Sabrina mentioned in her presentation within the next week. In addition, we'll have a very brief survey about the webinar, and we would ask our participants to go ahead and fill that out for some feedback as well. So thank you again to everybody, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.